Another exciting week of football is behind us. Week 10 is in the books, which means it is time for the Week 11 NFL Power Rankings show. Welcome in, everybody. I'm very excited for today's Power Rankings. We have a couple of standout teams from this season that are finally earning my graces as a top-tier team for this season and moving forward, and plenty more to talk about here. So let's go ahead and get started. If you could do me a huge favor, please do hit that like button as we get started. It really does help. It's a free and easy way to support this channel. But without further ado, let's begin at the bottom of the rankings in the booty tier. Climbing up a spot, we have the Ohio State Buckeyes. They climbed to 9-0 on the season. They knocked the number one ranked Texas Longhorns off their high horse to start the season, and they have not looked back since. Then at number 31, we have the Cleveland Browns browning their way to a loss against the New York Jets. And I say browning their way to a loss, I mean you allow two return touchdowns that really opened up this game, and you have multiple plays of pre-snap penalties in big spots. Just classic Browns errors lead to them losing this game. Though I will say, depending how you want to look at it, they do end up with better draft positioning out of this game, losing to the Jets that were going to be vying right around that same point in the draft, so they'll jump the Jets at least for now. And then the last thing I'll add here is, look, Dillon Gabriel, I feel like has been what you probably could have expected from him as a prospect. He's played point guard. He's done an admirable job as a, third round pick stepping into a bad situation, but he just doesn't look like a starter to me. The ball placement continues to be a struggle for him. I do want to see Shedeur at some point, and I think the Browns should want to see Shedeur as well. You want to know heading into this draft what you may or may not have there. It just doesn't feel like Dillon Gabriel has built enough momentum to be like, yeah, that's our starter next year. Maybe Shedeur could do that. I don't know, but it does feel like we're heading towards that, and perhaps the end of the Stefanski era. He already vacated his play calling duties. Now they lose to the Jets. Really feels like another loss. Might be another coach fired here. But then at number 30, we do have the New York Jets, who edged out the Browns this week. And I would say, generally speaking, inside that building, it's a good feeling to get a win on a week where the Jets obviously sold off signature talent, Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, loaded up on picks for the future, to feel like you're a competitive team and get a win after you sell off those players. I think it's a step in the right direction for the organization for sure. If I'm a Jets fan watching this game, I am saying this: thank God we didn't trade Breece Hall, because that dude is amazing. And it's so good to see him all the way back. The last year and a half, he hasn't quite had that same juice. He's a difference maker, man. He's playing like one of the better running backs in the entire league right now, and there's a lot of backs playing at a high level right now, but Breece is one of them. He took over this game. Yes, they had the big return touchdowns early, but if not for Breece Hall and his explosive plays, they still would have found a way to lose this game against the Browns. But the Jets climbed to 2-7. They are going to maintain that 30th ranking, though. I'm not overly wowed by them beating the Browns enough to bump them up in the rankings. But then staying in New York with the Giants at number 29, they're going to fall down 3 spots here. They do fire Brian Daboll. It is a little bit of a relief that we can just kind of move on from that conversation. I continue to say, it wasn't all bad with Brian Daboll. Clearly found the guy in Jackson Dart. It felt like this Giants team, and it feels like this Giants team was right on the cusp, but they couldn't get over that hump, and they continue to blow these late game leads. Another just horrific collapse in the fourth quarter. I do think it probably had to happen. Move on from Brian Daboll, but this is going to turn into a pretty attractive job, I think, with how Jackson Dart is playing. But whoever does step in has to teach Jackson Dart to slide, man. I mean, what he's doing with his legs, his vision and toughness as a runner is a major asset, but you got to find that balance, man. Watch some Lamar Jackson tape, the way that he learned early, you got to slide, you can't take those hits. It's the same thing with Jackson Dart. I think we've all felt it watching him, man, it's really fun to watch, but this isn't sustainable. Like, you can still run, you just got to avoid some of these hits. He's going to miss this week, presumably with the concussion. So hopefully that's a little bit of a learning moment for him. But yeah, this is still a fascinating team, but I think a drop in the rankings is appropriate, especially because I haven't seen who they've named the interim head coach. Maybe it's going to be Shane Waldron. If it is, that's not going to ignite this team. I don't think this locker room is behind him as a defensive coordinator or interim head coach. We'll see which direction they want to go there. But let's move on to the New Orleans Saints at number 28. They're jumping up 2 spots in the rankings here. I need to see more before we crown them as more than anything than a bad football team. But Tyler Shuck this week, one of my guys in this draft. Obviously, I was really enjoying seeing him go out and play well. I don't know that there's a player in the league for a long time, frankly, that so many people have just written off and destined him for failure before he ever really got an opportunity. He was really good this week going into Carolina, a defense that's played some really good football as of late, and some big-time throws, pushing the ball down the field. I mean, just that deep ball to Chris Olave, you can see the arm talent. Yes, J.C. Horn fell over, but that can happen to DBs when you really lay it out there and lead your wide receiver. These DBs get really uncomfortable trying to play the ball down the field. That's exactly what happened on a beautiful throw. You see the pocket presence from Shuck, some of the mobility and ability to sense pressure and make throws on the run. These are some of the things I really liked from him at Louisville. And clearly a lot of the things the Saints did too, is they spent a top 40 pick on the guy. Look, just because he's 25 years old coming in the league doesn't mean he doesn't have upside as a quarterback. I think it's really fun to see him display some of those traits that he does have. This was a former top recruit that was destined to be Justin Herbert's replacement at Oregon, and his college career just got thrown completely off track with injuries, and then he finally settled back down in that 7th season at Louisville. But there's a lot to like in Shuck's tape. And by the way, the first couple of games for him, it was number 1 getting thrown in a blowout loss against a Todd Bowles defense, and then number 2 against a Rams team that had a historic amount of ball control. The Rams in that first start for Tyler Shuck possessed the ball for like 45 plus minutes of that game. So this was really the first opportunity to truly evaluate Tyler Shuck, and he passed the test. So excited to see where it goes for him. If he can kind of, we're still a long way from crowning him as the franchise quarterback for the Saints, but maybe you feel like he earns this opportunity heading into next year. The Saints can continue to build up this roster around him. If nothing else, maybe he can be a nice starting caliber kind of bridge quarterback for them in a weird sense. Being a rookie, usually you talk about a veteran being a bridge, but either way, I think you're encouraged by what you saw from Shuck and him bringing more potent quarterback play to the table, frankly, than what Rattler was giving you. Does make this team a little bit more interesting. So a lot of time on the Saints this week. They get a +2 up to number 28 in the rankings. But then the Washington Commanders at number 27. Man, this was always going to be a tough week going against Detroit. Coming off a loss, already pissed off because of that loss, but they were going to be pissed off against this Commanders team regardless because they knocked them out of the playoffs and ruined their Super Bowl dreams last year. You see Dan Campbell take over the play calling, and it was a total FU game. So I don't want to look too much into this loss against Detroit. But, I'm keeping the Commanders here at the 27th ranking, but they really do feel like one of the worst teams in the league. And if you wanted to lower them even further, I'm not even really going to push back. Maybe they can get Jaden and Terry McLaurin back sooner rather than later and be a little bit more potent. But man, this defense, they're just target practice for opponents right now. It's horrible. And I hate to even go there, but look, this is Dan Quinn's defense. Like, show a little bit more pride on that side of the ball. I've questioned a lot of the talent base there, but if Dan Quinn can't get this defense to play a little bit better down the stretch, I mean, what's kind of the point of having the defensive head coach there? So things are just bad for Washington right now. We've been spending a lot of time on their struggles in the last few weeks, and it's all the same stuff. But let's go ahead and move on to the Raiders at number 26. You go back to Thursday Night Football. Look, they showed some heart against the Broncos. I can't give them too much credit. It was definitely a game that they should have won. Some very frustrating coaching in that game. Just the fact that they only gave Brock Bowers 2 targets, unbelievable in a game like that where you know he's going to be your best option when your offensive line is beat to shit and Gino's not seeing things well. He's taking sacks. Give Brock Bowers a chance on a fade or, anything. I just couldn't believe it. Not to mention the inability to play situational football just to get a few more yards so that they could get that much needed field goal in that game script. So it was a frustrating loss, but good to see the defense at least come out with some heart. They're going to lose a spot here, though, because as we jump up to the next team in our rankings, the Miami Dolphins are going to jump the Raiders and jump up a tier into this frisky tier. Look, a ton of credit where credit's due. This team could have spiraled out of control a long week after a rough loss against the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. But this is not the first time this year where we've seen this Mike McDaniel team show a little bit of heart. And with this win against the Bills, a convincing win, by the way. This wasn't just scraping by on the skin of your teeth and, seeing the Bills make a couple mistakes and escaping on a day where you didn't feel like the better team. I mean, they trounced the Buffalo Bills. I think this run defense has shown a lot of heart as of late. Jordan Brooks is playing out of his mind. And the offense with Jalen Waddle looking like a legit number 1 wide receiver, really for the first time in his career. His ball skills have been more consistent than they've ever been. He's really stepped up with Tyreek Hill going down. That was something I really wanted to see when Hill did get injured, is can Waddle be the number 1 at this stage in his career? And I think the answer to that has been yes, which is really good to see if you're a Dolphins fan. I think I'm at the stage with the Dolphins after this win against the Bills that I would not fire Mike McDaniel. It's obviously not all been perfect with this team, but I think some of the toughness they've shown this year checks some of those boxes about McDaniel. Like, obviously this team has gotten a lot of fair criticism for being too soft. Look, they weren't soft this week, right? That was a tough, mental toughness type of win. And I just think it's going to be hard to find a better offensive schemer than him on the open market right now. So I don't know that firing Mike McDaniel solves this team's problems right now. At this point, I would say keep him around for another year. Let him be on the hot seat next year for sure. But things are looking good for Miami. And man, they play the Commanders probably without Jaden Daniels here in that morning international game with a chance to get to 4-7 and kind of have a feel-good close to their season here. And I do think they have separated themselves from all of those bottom tier teams right now. Before we talk about our next team here, I want to thank the sponsor for today's video, SeatGeek, the number 1 ticketing app out there. If you guys are looking to go see your favorite NFL team, or maybe with basketball and hockey season in full force now, you want to go check out your favorite squad, SeatGeek has got you covered. They have the best user interface with the best market competitive prices. On SeatGeek, they will color code every single ticket option. So all you have to do is look for the green dots. You know you're getting the best value, not just on SeatGeek, but throughout the entire ticketing market as well. If you've never been to the stadium, they have real images of every single different section in just about every primary stadium. So you know exactly what that view is going to look like. Love that feature. And you'll get the tickets right there in the app. You don't have to jump through a bunch of different third-party email chains and have this stressful experience approaching the gate that some other ticketing apps might force you to go through. So SeatGeek has got you covered. They are the best in the business for a reason. I have proudly partnered with them for years. Love SeatGeek. And think you guys will too. So if you want to get some tickets, go have some fun, go catch a game or a concert, whatever it might be, make sure you're using code TFG10 at checkout. You will also save up to $20 on that next purchase on top of everything. So that's code TFG10 at SeatGeek. And let's get back to the power rankings. The Cincinnati Bengals at number 24. They were on bye week this week. Some good news. They opened up Joe Burrow's practice window. We'll see where that goes. And at the end of the day, I don't know how much it matters if Joe Burrow returns to this team. For one, their upcoming schedule is really pretty tough. They do play the Steelers this week, which they beat earlier in the year. We'll see if they can get one this week. I think that would be, huge and a step towards Joe Burrow returning this year. But then I think it's Patriots, Ravens, Bills, I think, the next 3 weeks after that. I don't know that Burrow would be returning with like hopes that this team can sneak back into the playoffs. But anytime you get to watch Joe Burrow, it's at least a positive. Ultimately, this team has a historically bad defense. They're not going to go anywhere. Even if they do magically sneak into the playoffs, like they're not going on a run with this defense. It's just I'm not allowing myself to attach to that level of hope on this Bengals team. But they are a frisky team. Coming off the bye week here, we know what this offense is capable of, whether it's with Joe Flacco or Joe Burrow. At number 23, the Arizona Cardinals. So much for that feel-good win against the Cowboys and the idea that the Cardinals, even when they lose, they keep it close. And so much for that tight point differential, despite their 3-5 record. That goes out the window as they get slaughtered by the Seattle Seahawks. Couple of sloppy fumbles from Jacoby Brissett. This game got out of hand early. Don't like to see this defense get lit up like they did. And it's a -1 for the Cardinals as they are now officially on a jog through the rest of the season. And a lot of soul searching to do to figure out what the hell this offseason is going to look like for them. Is it going to be a new quarterback? Is it going to be a new coach? A lot to learn from the rest of this season. Still a frisky team, in my opinion, based on the rest of the weeks we've seen from the Cardinals. But I think at this point, playoffs are officially off the table for this team. But then at number 22, the Carolina Panthers, as disappointing of a week as anybody this week. They're going to drop down 3 spots just a week after they went into Lambeau and won. Panthers fans were a little frustrated, I think, that I didn't bump them up a tier after that win against Green Bay. And I said, as weird as it sounds, impressive win against Green Bay, but I wanted to see them come out and just feel like more of a playoff caliber team against the Saints. I didn't think that was that much to ask, and it almost felt predictable what happened. Bryce Young was horrible this week against the Saints. I thought at least in the Packers game, he made some moments to keep drives alive and find a way to win that game in a game manager type of way, but there's just no juice there. They don't have answers on offense right now if the run game isn't working. And, credit to the Saints, the run defense has been much better than I thought it would be in the Brandon Staley regime there. But you got to find a way to get that working against that Saints team either way. The defense fought, but it wasn't enough on a day where the offense just completely shit the bed in a complete, like, 1 step forward, 2 steps back type of week for the Panthers. So obviously they're a frisky team. They can pull off some upsets and muddy up the game and keep things interesting, but I can't make that leap from them to be more of a playoff contending team. You had to beat the Saints to get to 6-4 and keep pace with the NFC standings, and they failed to do that. So a very disappointing week for Carolina. And then I'm actually going to jump the Cowboys up +2 on their bye week. They made some trades, right? They go get Logan Wilson, who I question why he had been benched in Cincinnati. I think he can step in and improve their linebacker room. We'll see there, but especially adding Quinnen Williams. I mean, you can question, just how much sense or logical thinking is going on. Like, more or less trading Micah Parsons for Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, and a second round pick swap. Did I get that right? But he is an addition to this defense for the remainder of the season. And that interior D-line is pretty damn nice for Dallas. So I do think their defense will be better for the remainder of this season. And I do like their offense, even though they've slipped up the last couple of weeks. So as far as bye weeks go, adding some guys at the trade deadline, I think Dallas deserves a bump. And we'll see if they can go on a run here and make things interesting. Obviously, a 3-5-1 record is going to make that a challenge, but was, again, a team that got better on their bye week, +2 for Dallas. And then at number 20, the Atlanta Falcons, going to give them a +1. I think it was a respectable loss against the Colts, taking them to overtime. But beyond moral victories and moving up a spot in the power rankings because the Panthers lost to the Saints, I mean, the Falcons continue to be a very frustrating team to watch and evaluate. They're just so inconsistent on really both sides of the ball. Like, they've shown good moments on both sides. They've had electric moments with the offense. They've had some really good defensive outings in this game. They did a good job to muddy things up for Daniel Jones, and their pass defense was pretty, solid, all things considered, based on how good the Colts have looked throwing the football this year. But the run defense has shown up as a major issue with that light front of the Falcons. Jonathan Taylor just gashing them left and right. And honestly, I just continue to be underwhelmed by Michael Penix. Like, he looks the part. I think he's a starting caliber option for this team, but random misfires, processing deficiencies. I think the pocket presence and the inability to consistently extend plays is a major issue. I think he's just okay. I don't know. Falcons are a tough one. They fall to 3-6 this week. Then the Jaguars at number 19, they had an opportunity maybe to jump up into the playoff fringe tier, which is our next tier, but they blow it. In a year that's had some catastrophic collapses, this one by the Jags is up there. I mean, you're sitting there watching this broadcast, J.J. Watt on the call, kind of talking about the internal issues for the Texans, basically talking as if the game's over in the third quarter. It's against Davis Mills, who really couldn't get too much going early in this game, and felt like the Jags were going to get back-to-back wins here and make things interesting for the remainder of their season, and they completely fall apart. Gotta be frustrated if you're a Jags fan. They get a +1 in the rankings again because the Panthers did what they did. And the Jags obviously still played some good football in moments this week. I think, Jacoby Myers improved some of their drop issues. You felt some big moments from him that they've been missing with this receiving core. Hopefully they can get Brian Thomas back and, continue to be a solid, frisky team. But definitely a missed opportunity this week for the Jags as they finish up our frisky tier number 4. But let's jump up to my third tier, the playoff fringe tier. Some interesting teams at this point in the season. We got 5 teams in this tier, and I'm very interested to see for all of these teams, for various reasons, how the remainder of their season goes and if they can sneak in to the dance at the end of the day. But the Minnesota Vikings at number 18, a frustrating week for sure. They drop one at home to Baltimore. J.J. McCarthy did not play well this week. Some turnover-worthy plays in there, a lot of misfires. Some of the timing on throws is off, so maybe a one step forward, one step back type of look at him after he did go into Detroit and did play well last week. So we're obviously in evaluation mode on J.J. McCarthy really for the rest of the season, no matter what happens with the Vikings. I do still think there's an element of danger having to play this Vikings team, given a lot of the talent they have and the coaching that this team has. We'll see as they play our number 17 team here, the Chicago Bears, this week, how these two teams shape up. But back to the Vikings for just a second, who do drop down 2 spots in the rankings. I think if you looked at the schedule and said Ravens and Lions, let's get one of those, that's fair for the Vikings. And now we'll see what happens moving forward. Again, against our number 17 team here, the Chicago Bears. Now, am I going to bump the Bears up from the number 17 spot, a solid ranking, after it took them knocking Jackson Dart out of the game and coming back against the Giants, who managed to collapse against everybody? Would I say that was a super impressive win? No, but these are the types of wins that the Bears typically don't win. And this has been really the story of their season. They've been the cardiac kids this year. And I tweeted it out kind of in jest, but I think it was a preview for the power rankings here. Kind of in jest, but also partially serious. Like, the Bears have had a very thrilling, character-building preseason this year. Their 6 wins, let's put it this way. If this were college football, the committee would not be ranking the Chicago Bears. Thrilling, narrow victories against juggernauts such as the Raiders, Giants, Bengals, and Commanders, and then they were able to knee it out at least against the Cowboys and Saints at Soldier Field. I think that's a realistic look at the Bears. They've progressed as an overall football team. They're winning games that older regimes would not have, and Caleb Williams has shown some progress this year, which is a huge thumbs up, especially these last 2 weeks. And I think overall you can say they've accomplished a lot of success this year. But anytime a team reaches a 6-3 record, the narrative can start to shift. And are we talking about the Bears as an actual playoff contender right now? Or do they have a lot to prove still if we want to get there? And I think it is the latter there. And that starts for me this week at Minnesota. And I'm not saying they don't have a chance to win this one, but it's a show me game for Chicago because at Minnesota, it might not sound like much. That would be by far their best win on the season. So let's see if they can get that done and continue to keep it going with some of the offensive progress that they've made. But then at number 16, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're also on that list of very frustrating teams, a very week-to-week team right now. They somehow managed to find themselves back at the number 16 ranking. You know, their nice, cozy home that they've been at for the last 5 years, it feels like, the number 16 team in the league. Disappointing night, to say the least. Just not really competitive against the Chargers after a week, beating the Colts convincingly the week before. So who the hell are the Pittsburgh Steelers? Who knows? Aaron Rodgers played like shit. That's why they lost. There's no way to sugarcoat it. He missed a bunch of throws. The defense did what they could to keep them in that game, but the offense just wasn't competitive. And then you also see when the Steelers don't do the Steelers things, like making all their field goals and they drop an interception, like usually the Steelers are the team that is really good with their kicks with Chris Boswell. That's important when they muddy up games in the way that they do. And typically the Steelers are the team that capitalize on mistakes. Justin Herbert made one of the most head-scratching throws I've ever seen from him, and the Steelers just dropped it. And they weren't able to bounce back from that point moving forward. So it's a -3 for the Steelers. I still think there's a lot to like about this team. You go back just a week ago, and it was a lot of positive conversations on this team. So we don't want to be overly reactive from 1 week, but it was a disappointing one to say the least. Then we have the Niners at number 15. I don't know. I feel like that was about how I expected it to go against the Rams based on where I've been at with the Niners. I still don't think they're a bad team. Excited to see Brock Purdy come back and see what that might mean for this team, but obviously their lack of defensive talent out there with all these injuries, it's becoming a serious hurdle for Robert Saleh to try and overcome. Cost them the Texans game. It cost them this one against the Rams where they just couldn't get off the field. Still a lot of faith in this coaching staff. But yeah, they're just kind of coasting through the year at this point. It feels like even if they sneak into the playoffs, like, is anyone really afraid of this Niners team? Their ceiling just isn't very high, and they ran into a team with a very high ceiling, clicking full cylinder right now in the Rams. But then at number 14, I think the team I'm most excited to talk about this week, the Houston Texans. They really are, to me, the most fascinating team in the league right now as far as being kind of a sleeping giant. I think so many people wrote this team off in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and I get it. The offensive line issues were a non-starter for this team. But I've continued to kind of go to bat for this Texans team, and I'm proud to say that I have because I don't think anybody's looking forward to playing this squad right now. They still have a long way to go, right? They're ranked 14th. It's nothing crazy here, but to steal that win from the Jags on a day, by the way, that the defense did play extremely well. Don't let the 29 points fool you there. It was some turnovers from the offense that gave the Jags a short field and a big punt return touchdown that made that number look a lot bigger than it was, especially in the second half of that game. That defense, once they saw Davis Mills just completing passes, they smelled blood a little bit and felt like, hey, let's mess around and try to win this game. They shut the door. They slammed the door shut on the Jags, and that's what this defense is capable of. And then for the offense, it's not so much about like how they played this week. Obviously, they're going to get C.J. Stroud back after the concussion. I will say this. The offensive line is playing much better. It was really good to see Trent Brown out there at right tackle. I mean, he's one of these guys that when he plays, he's a really good tackle. He missed the entire first half of the year for them. I'm curious if he can stay out there and stay healthy. That could be a big difference for the offensive line, just kind of dropping another quality starter into the mix there. For an offensive line that's already like very quietly gone from incapable to poor. But that's a good jump. And the other thing with this offense, kind of quarterback aside, is look, they've unlocked these weapons. Number one, Nico Collins got his fire back this week. He saw the team's season ending at halftime of this game against the Jags, and he said, F it, why not win this game for my team? The catches he made in the second half, just go check him out if you didn't watch this game. He is absurd, Nico Collins. But it wasn't just him. I mean, they've really started to discover Jalen Noel these last couple of weeks. He is such a great answer if they are going to have some of these games where the offensive line struggles. Jaden Higgins is making some catches. Dalton Schultz did have a drop this week, but he made the big touchdown catch as well at the end of the game. I just think the Texans are like quietly that team nobody's talking about. They play the Titans this week. Should be able to take care of business. And dang it, I really wanted to go this whole video without even mentioning that team's existence, but that's where that team is at. Texans can get back to 5-5 and very much be on the hunt for a wild card spot. I don't think they're going to catch the Colts at this point, but I will just end this by reiterating. I think Houston is the most fascinating sleeper team in the NFL right now because things are improving for the offense. You get Stroud back, who I think has gotten a lot of unfair criticism with how bad that offensive line has been. And with this defense potentially being the best defense in the NFL, they're dangerous. But we are going to conclude that tier there with the Texans and now jump up to me, the true playoff caliber teams. And that's going to start with the LA Chargers. Just a big round of applause for the Chargers. It's been a roller coaster last couple of months for this team. Some ugly losses and then some big wins. This week was really a big bounce back week. And for the defense to lock in the way that they did against the Steelers, for Herbert to just find answers as this game went on, and honestly, for them to show that they can move the ball and have offensive success against an elite edge duo with their tackles out is a big box for them to check. And I just continue to be so impressed by the Harbaugh regime here. They are resilient. They find ways to respond. I don't know that this team has a crazy ceiling with some of the holes on the defense and the offensive line. It's not like the Chargers lit up the scoreboard this week against Pittsburgh, but they are definitely, to me, a playoff caliber, wild card caliber team, and they deserve to climb up not just a spot in the rankings, but more importantly, jump back up into this tier after I had some serious concerns on them once Joe Alt went down. But then at number 12, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's not a horrible loss against the Patriots, but the defense slipping up a little bit this week. The offense just not quite able to capture that, superhuman effort that Baker was able to put together in the first 7 weeks of the season. This is still a good team, and hopefully it's a continuation of that narrative where hopefully they can get Bucky Irving back, Godwin back, Evans back. We'll see if that can happen. But it does feel like a little bit of that magic has worn off, and you're left with a very solid playoff caliber football team that's searching for a little bit more upside right now. But then at number 11, the Denver Broncos, for the fourth or fifth week in a row, they hold this number 11 spot. I mean, it comes back to what we said about the Bears a little bit. Now, it's not a perfect parallel because the Broncos have 8 wins compared to the Bears' 6 wins. The Broncos did beat the Eagles, so they do have one signature win in there. But the Broncos have not looked sharp in a lot of these wins, man. And to be honest, they were lucky to escape against the Raiders with a win on Thursday Night Football, and that's not a good Raiders team. They've had to pull out late-game wins against teams like the Jets and the Giants as well. And it's not that you ding them for that. It's good that they're winning those close games and building character as a football team. But they haven't done enough to move up in these rankings. And, again, escaping against the Raiders isn't going to do that. Now, for Broncos fans that are tired of them keeping this spot week after week after week as they, play a bunch of D2 teams, here you go. This week against the Chiefs. This is your opportunity, not just to climb up in the rankings, but damn, this might be an opportunity to knock the boogeyman. I don't know if I can say out of the playoffs, but you can pretty much lock up the AFC West with a win here this week against the Chiefs. This is your chance to go do it and impress me enough to climb the power rankings here. I understand the frustration. you only play who's on your schedule. A win's a win. I've been doing this a long time. I hear it every year. Look, on this channel, a win is not a win. We look at who you beat. And this week, you finally get that opportunity to go and, make some noise here. Let's see what the Broncos can do. Bo Nix has got to play better, though. And it's not going to be easy against the Chiefs team coming off a bye week. But then at number 10, the Green Bay Packers. They got to fall down 3 more spots. It's been a pretty steep fall for them these last couple of weeks. Their frustrations continue, right? Like, they were humming to start the year, then the offense was really working, but the defense took a step back. These last couple of weeks, though, the defense has made the right adjustments. Love seeing what we're seeing from Valentine in that secondary. The defense is playing much better these last couple of weeks, but the offense has faltered. Jordan Love's got to play better. There's no way around it. Because this offense right now around Jordan Love, the run game hasn't been dynamic. They lose Tucker Kraft. I think there's a lot of legitimate criticisms towards the overall offensive philosophy from Matt LaFleur right now. It's very conservative. The machine of this offense, especially with these injuries, not just to Kraft, but they're out there against the Eagles this week without Kraft, Golden, Dobbs leaves in the second half of this game, and Jaden Reed. You stack that on top of some legitimate criticisms towards Matt LaFleur right now. I still like Matt LaFleur, but he is on a bummer of a run as the coach of this team right now. Love's not playing well enough to compensate for that right now, and you're getting some costly mistakes from Love. You had the ugly heave into triple coverage last week. You have the costly, sloppy fumble before half in what was, that was the difference in this game, right? Was that Jordan Love fumble when they're in field goal range. Now, it's the Packers. There's no guarantee they would have made the field goal because their special teams continue to suck. But this team has to find a way to get back to playing that complementary football that they were to start the season. Now, they obviously need to fall down. They need to play better football. I think they're still right there. If you want a positive spin here, they showed that they can hang against a team like the Eagles in this NFC. It's great to see this defense playing like that championship caliber defense again. If you clean a couple things up, they win that game. And yes, they're hurt right now, but Dobbs should be fine. We'll hear more about that. Golden should be back. Jaden Reed should be back. And I think this was also always going to be a tough week. Their scheme was built around Tucker Kraft. There's legitimate criticisms towards Matt LaFleur, but I still have enough faith in him within the next couple of weeks to make some adjustments, have this team learn a little bit about themselves without that core signature do-it-all tight end that this offense was really constructed around, to make some of those adjustments. I'll just end it with this. They have got to open up the passing game. I understand people are slamming Jordan Love, and like I said, he's had some frustrating mistakes. Clearly, this offense is at their best once Matt LaFleur has no choice but to get into their drop-back passing game. Their issues largely stem from ineffective early down runs, gadget plays, conservative play calling, not going anywhere, and then you're putting Jordan Love into way too many third and longs where he has to put the team on his back. You have no choice if you're the Packers right now but to look at what is actually working, and it is the drop-back passing game, and lean heavier into that on earlier downs. We'll see if Matt LaFleur can make those adjustments or if these frustrations will continue for the Packers. Then you got the Baltimore Ravens at number 9. Their ascension continues. I think most of us predicted this was going to happen, but it's good to see nonetheless, right? Lamar playing well. The defense settling down has meant everything for this team. You don't need to win every game scoring 35-plus points. Getting Kyle Hamilton involved in the slot. They're playing better up front. And just, they feel like a better coached football team than they were when it was sheer panic to start the season. So the Ravens are now like heavy favorites to win the AFC North. They were odds-on favorites when they were 1-5. Now they've won 3 straight. The Steelers lose another one. The Bengals are 3-6. We're not even going to mention the Browns there. For me with the Ravens, it's more about not if they're going to get in, it's are they going to get back to where we can really feel comfortable about this team up there, back into that top tier of AFC juggernauts. I think they're approaching it. They're not flawless right now. They still have, I think, some boxes to check before we get there. But it's been a steep climb for the Ravens. They find themselves at number 9. And then the Indianapolis Colts at number 8. I think this is a good spot for the Colts. I will say, adding Sauce Gardner at the trade deadline. If they can get DeForest Buckner back, that was a tough, one step forward, one step back. I know I've said that 3 times today, but it applies here for sure. It's good to get Sauce in there, but you lose Buckner, you lose the best pass rusher on that D line and a core part of your run defense. That's a blow. So maybe if they can get Buckner back here, kind of for the playoff push and be a defense that I really trust more, then maybe we can get there with the Colts to be a top tier team for me. I still really like this offensive infrastructure, of course. Like is an understatement. I love this offensive infrastructure. Jonathan Taylor, legitimate MVP candidate. He put the team on his back this week. I mean, the other thing with the Colts is Daniel Jones has shown if you get to him, those old Daniel Jones turnover where he plays, whether it's a bad mistake through the air or the fumbles with a lack of pocket presence, they're in there to be taken advantage of if you're an opposing defense. So you've at least seen some glitches in the machine of the Colts offense the last couple of weeks. But overall, I think this is a good spot, right? They're an 8-2 team. They've got a lot going for them. Good overtime win against the Falcons this week. But let's jump up to my top tier of teams, my Super Bowl contenders. I am going to have the Kansas City Chiefs at the bottom of this tier at the number 7 spot. And it is a -3 for the Chiefs coming off their bye week here because there's a few teams that have just been more impressive and deserve to jump the Chiefs. But obviously, at that 5-4 record, you're going to be able to poke some holes in the Chiefs' resume on the season. This is a big week against Denver to remind everybody that they are still the Kansas City Chiefs, that they are going to take care of business down the stretch, maybe even end up winning this division where they're still not behind not just Denver, but the Chargers as well, who did get them earlier in the year. This feels right for me as the Chiefs basically begin their second season here, coming off the bye week as we head into week 11. Will they do what they always do? Bunker down, do Kansas City Chiefs things and go on a run? Or is this year's team going to be different? I think this week is going to be very telling for that. Then we have the Buffalo Bills at number 6, a -5 after I did rank them number 1 last week after they knocked off the Chiefs in week 9. I mean, what the Buffalo? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Who do you want to be? What the hell? They just got annihilated by the Bills. They can't throw the ball right now. Josh Allen isn't playing like Josh Allen, and the defense just regresses straight back to what they showed in the first part of the season, getting gashed by Devon Achane and showing holes in the second and third level of this unit. Very frustrating week for the Bills. They've earned some benefit that they can bounce back again, but I thought we were past this for the Bills. I thought that they were looking forward towards trying to get that 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, they're now at a serious deficit behind the Patriots, who I'm going to rank above the Bills now in their own division. We're really starting to see that narrative open up from this season at large, where the powerhouses that we've been used to for 3+ years, especially when you look at the AFC with the Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens where they're at right now, we're at a fork in the roads moment in this season with all these teams, Bills included, where myself and certainly us as football fans might need to just wake up to what this season's been trying to tell us this year, that maybe these teams aren't what we've been so acclimated to seeing them be, those juggernauts in that conference. And the Patriots are the team really looking to take advantage of that, potential shift in the narrative in this conference. Now, my number 1 ranked team in the AFC, the New England Patriots. I mean, they had that big win against the Bills, which was a big moment for them. That was their kind of we're here as a playoff caliber team. They've gone on and looked super impressive against some bad opponents. And then they get a big opportunity here to go to Tampa, a legitimate playoff caliber team on the road. And for Drake May to continue doing what he's doing against a Todd Bowles defense. I mean, he is every bit an MVP candidate right now. Very similar, I think, to what we saw from Jaden Daniels last year in many ways, where it's well, he's a young kid. I'm not necessarily going to come out and rank him above Mahomes and Lamar and Allen and Burrow and those guys. But you watch the tape and you see the way the kid's playing, and he's playing at that level right now. I can't say enough about how unreal Drake May looks right now on top of Mike Vrabel coming in and just being the tide that lifts all boats here, right? The defense isn't perfect, but they're playing really good football, good team football. We figured that would happen. And I think the toughness with the offensive line playing much better than we've been used to here in New England. You're seeing the development from these receivers. It's just been so many boxes checked for New England. They're not what you would typically think of from a Super Bowl contending team necessarily. Like they don't really have, they have Christian Gonzalez, but they don't really have like a difference-making defense. They don't really have difference makers with their playmakers. The offensive line is playing well, but still very average. And then you have the great quarterback. But again, with these teams in the AFC, Bills, Chiefs, Ravens especially, looking beatable, why shouldn't we at this point now, with a full season sample size of the Patriots playing like this, why shouldn't we say the Patriots are the best team in the AFC right now as they climb to 8-2 on the season? And the crazy thing, too, I know we're spending a lot of time on the Patriots. Their 2 losses, like, they still count, but you're talking about a week 1 loss to the Raiders where this team obviously had so many moving pieces. It was, still going to take maybe a little bit of time for them to figure things out. This team is clearly not the same team they were week 1. So I hate to say you throw it out, but like I said, those weren't these Patriots. And then when they lost to the Steelers, it was just a bunch of self-inflicted wounds with 5 turnovers in that game, just coughing the ball up left and right. They were still the better team in that game. They just made a few stupid mistakes. So their resume is extremely impressive for what they're doing. I love to see it. But then at number 4, I'm going to have the Philadelphia Eagles here, dropping down 2 spots in the rankings. Certainly not an impressive week in Green Bay. I'm a little confused by the Eagles because it felt like they had kind of moved on from the whole early season Kevin Patullo bad offense thing, and then they just decided to come off the bye week with 2 weeks to think about it and go back to it. I'm curious to see what that's all about and if that changes again, right? Like it really felt like they had done more under center offense. They had kind of unlocked this passing game a little bit. Jalen Hurts had started to play really good football, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, we're going to go back to being a high school offense that calls a draw on 3rd and 13, punts the ball away and trusts the defense and acts like, Jalen Hurts is a backup quarterback. And I'm not the biggest Jalen Hurts guy, but clearly they're better off when they trust him to do some things for their offense as opposed to whatever the hell this is. So, a slight ding for that on top of some other teams just looking really good this week is going to lead to the -2. The defense played outstanding, and they do deserve credit for that. If you're an Eagles fan, at least that's a big positive coming out of that Packers game is like this D-line's starting to feel like you've got the pieces to really put the pressure on, and that secondary coming together. It's fun to see Nakobe Dean back out there too. I know Jahad Campbell's playing well, but Dean brings a little bit of something else. So I still feel very good about the Eagles. I still think they are obviously one of the best teams in the league, but they're just kind of getting passed by a couple of these other teams that look really good. The Rams are just a juggernaut right now. I'm just going to say this. If they stay healthy and continue this heater that they're on offense right now, this is now like the 3rd or 4th straight week since they really have started to lean into this idea of 13 personnel, marrying that with their 11 personnel stuff that's been the staple of the McVay offense for all these years. They have so many buttons to press, so many playmakers, and a quarterback in Matthew Stafford's that's seeing the field as well as anybody in the league right now. He is throwing absolute dimes week after week. He very much is in the MVP race. I think it's a 3-man race right now. And I don't know who my pick is, but Stafford, Drake May, and Jonathan Taylor, those got to be your front runners right now. But Stafford deserves that praise. And this defense is just so damn solid, man, right? They're not perfect. If you keep the game close, I think you can run on this team. But their pass defense is furious with that D-line. So I do think they deserve to jump above the Eagles, even though the Eagles pulled that out in that matchup weeks and weeks ago. You can't just look at head-to-head when the season continues to progress like this and the Rams just look and feel like the better team than the Eagles right now, even if it's ever so slightly. I mean, I would love to see a rematch of that game where these teams have given us some battles in recent meetings. But I do have the Detroit Lions at number 2. It really was a uncharacteristically sloppy day against the Vikings when they came off that bye week. You don't just completely dismiss it, but they definitely got back on track for how we feel about the Lions here this week against the Commanders. And I don't think it's nothing that Dan Campbell took over the play calling. I don't know if they'll keep it that way. He obviously did a great job at it, so I don't know if you necessarily change it. I don't know that change needed to happen, right? I don't think the play calling's really been an issue in Detroit, but it did feel even better when Dan Campbell took over the controller. So that was fun to see. I think that was more about just like an FU, like I want to get involved in this game against the team that, ended our Super Bowl hopes last year. But he did kind of unlock Jameson Williams as that big purchase this offseason, that big contract extension. They've kind of just forgotten he existed this year. So that was another wrinkle unlocked for this offense. Just a dominant outing for Detroit, who, when they are on, they are the best team in football, but they've had some weeks where they've been a little bit off this year. So that's what leads to them just being number 2 behind our number 1 ranked Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks fans have been waiting for this moment for a long time around this channel. I was certainly a little bit hesitant to start the season, especially that the offense would continue at this rate. Would Sam Darnold keep it up? Would the offensive line keep it up? Can JSN continue on this just absurd trajectory that he's on? And that's not even to take away from JSN, but like earlier in the year, I was a little skeptical that he's just straight up one of the 5 best players in the NFL and is going to have this historic season for a wide receiver. He's unstoppable. And Sam Darnold is unstoppable right now. This is the best quarterback wide receiver pairing in the NFL right now based on how these guys are playing. And then you have Clint Kubiak dialing up pushing all the right buttons. They've completely sheltered their offensive line issues. I've seen enough to know that this offense is not slowing down. And then you've got the Mike McDonald defense fully reaching their potential. When the Seahawks hired McDonald, the idea was within about, a season and a half, this is the type of coach that can unite this defense to being one of the best defenses in the NFL. And as you probably could have expected, there's been some downs. There's been certainly a lot of ups, but like within the last month, now that they've gotten some guys back in the secondary and they've really, figured out this D line and how they want to use these guys, you've dropped Nicky Manwari into that Kyle Hamilton role that they were really looking to fulfill through the draft, obviously. This team, this football team, I don't know how you don't watch them for the last 2 months and say that's the best team in football. And I tweeted this out. They remind me so much of some of these basketball teams in the last couple of years, the Nuggets and the Thunder especially, where yes, they have some superstar talent, guys like Jokic and Shai Alexander. That's your Darnold JSN punch there. But it's not even so much about those guys. And I know we're going pretty deep into a basketball analogy here, but I think it really applies cross-sport here to the Seahawks, where this team has that hive mind mentality. Everything is clicking and tying together, and that confidence level is just off the freaking charts. You watch teams like the Nuggets when they went on that championship run, the Spurs going back in the days, the Thunder last year. I have that same feeling when I watch the Seahawks, where it's so much bigger than just one guy. And until anybody can knock the Seahawks out of that rhythm, they are, I think, the hardest team to beat in the league right now and have earned this number 1 spot. And I couldn't have been any more wrong about being hesitant on this team coming in, by the way. Like, I ranked them in the 20s. I was super skeptical about the construction of this offense, how Sam Darnold played at the end of last year. I did love the projection for this defense to keep getting better. That's not so much a surprise, but to be complimented by the offense, this is by far the team I've been the most wrong about this year. But I love to see it. So that's going to do it for the power rankings this week. It's another studs and duds week, you guys. So no weekly recap podcast, but I hope you enjoyed the power rankings to be this week's version of the weekly recap podcast. I'm really going to put my head down and see if I can't finish our 4 remaining divisions for my studs and duds player review series. But there's a chance that one more episode leaks into next week. But generally speaking, for those viewers of the channel looking for that scheduled Wednesday podcast episode, you can expect that back next week. That's all we got here today. Please do hit that like button again on the way out if you haven't yet. Really helps me out. Make sure you're subscribed as well for all of my NFL analysis here on the channel. And let me know what you think of the rankings this week. I think we put together a pretty good list that I feel good about here. And I will see you guys soon. Peace out.